Hello, and welcome to Lyla's Lullabies, where we spend time exploring with Lyla, a traveler who wanders the world at her own pace, while sharing her most enriching and restorative moments with you. In tonight's story, we'll follow Lyla as she explores the natural beauty of Canyonlands National Park. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to remember. Just settle in, get comfortable, and let yourself go. We're so glad you're here. Whenever you're ready, let's begin. Lyla climbed into the passenger seat of the Jeep as the sun was just clearing the eastern horizon, painting the Red Rock landscape in warm morning light. September in Canyonlands meant the brutal summer heat had passed. The temperatures mild and perfect for hiking, the light clear and golden. Her guide, a woman named Sarah with sun-weathered skin and laugh lines around her eyes, started the engine and checked the day's plan on a clipboard. "We've got a great day ahead," Sarah said. "Needles District is my favorite. Less crowded than Island in the Sky, and the rock formations are incredible. We'll do some driving on rough roads, some hiking, and time it so we're back for sunset at the best viewpoints. Sound good?" "Perfect," Lyla said, settling in, her day pack at her feet containing water, snacks, sunscreen, and layers for the changing temperatures. They drove along UT 211, the approach road to the Needles District, the landscape gradually transforming from scrubland to red rock desert, the distinctive spires and fins that gave the district its name appearing in the distance. Vertical formations of Cedar Mesa sandstone striped in red and white, looking like enormous needles thrust up from the earth. The first stop was the Needles Visitor Center, a low building designed to blend with the landscape. Sarah went in briefly to check road conditions. Important in the backcountry, where rain could make roads impassable, while Lyla stood outside, looking at the view, breathing the clean desert air. The sky was impossibly blue, that high desert clarity where the air was so dry and clear that distances seemed compressed, details visible miles away. The sun was warm but not hot, the temperature perfect, and she felt a surge of excitement for the day ahead. Sarah emerged from the visitor center, giving a thumbs up. "All clear. Roads are in good shape. Let's start with a warm-up walk at Pothole Point, get your legs moving before the longer hikes." They drove a short distance to the Pothole Point trailhead, where a easy loop trail offered views and a chance to see the potholes, depressions in the slick rock that held water after rains, creating temporary ecosystems. The trail was short, maybe half a mile, but immediately impressive. The slick rock was textured and beautiful, layers of ancient sand dunes now turned to stone, cross-bedding visible in the rock face, telling stories of wind and water from millions of years ago. The potholes themselves were dry now. It had been weeks since rain, but their shapes were distinct. Smooth bowls carved by water and wind, some shallow, others surprisingly deep. Information signs explained how these ephemeral pools hosted specialized life: tadpole shrimp and fairy shrimp, insects and amphibians adapted to survive in temporary water, their eggs lying dormant through dry periods, hatching when rain returned. The views from the trail were spectacular. The distinctive needles and fins of the district visible to the west, the Abajo Mountains rising to the east, their peaks the highest points for miles, and everywhere, the red rock landscape, eroded into fantastic shapes by wind and water over millennia. After the walk, they returned to the Jeep and Sarah turned onto Elephant Hill Road, the beginning of their backcountry adventure. The road immediately became rougher, unpaved and rocky, the Jeep's four-wheel drive necessary to navigate the terrain. "This is one of the more famous four-wheel drive roads in the area," Sarah explained as they bounced over rocks. "Wait until we get to Elephant Hill itself. It's quite the experience." The road wound through the landscape, following washes and climbing over slick rock, offering constantly changing views. They passed campsites tucked into alcoves, saw a few other vehicles, serious off-roaders and modified Jeeps and trucks, but mostly they had the landscape to themselves. Then Elephant Hill appeared ahead, and Lyla understood Sarah's comment. The road climbed the massive rock formation at an angle that seemed impossible, tilted and rough, requiring careful navigation and nerve. Sarah handled it expertly, the Jeep clawing its way up, engine growling, tires finding purchase on the sandstone. At the top, Sarah paused so Lyla could look back at what they'd just climbed. The angle was dramatic, the road barely visible, and she felt a rush of excitement, the adventure aspect of the day fully realized. They continued to the Elephant Hill trailhead and parked. Other vehicles were there, a few Jeeps and a truck, but not many, the backcountry nature of this area keeping crowds small. Sarah handed Lyla a trail map. "We'll do part of the Chesler Park loop. Not the whole thing, that would take all day, but enough to get into the Needles to see what makes this place special. It's about 3 miles round trip to get into the park and back. Bring plenty of water." They started hiking, following cairns, small stacks of rocks marking the route, across slick rock and through sandy washes. The trail led them between massive rock formations, the Needles rising on both sides, creating corridors and passages, the scale both intimidating and inviting. The sandstone was striped in bands of red and white, the colors vivid in the morning sun, and the formations were endlessly varied in shape. Some like massive pillars, others like fins barely thick enough to stand, still others like mushrooms with narrow bases and wide caps, the differential erosion creating sculpture on a grand scale. They entered Chesler Park, a large natural meadow surrounded by the Needles, the formations creating walls that enclosed a grassy area, a green oasis in the red rock desert. The contrast was striking, the soft grass and the hard stone, the horizontal meadow and the vertical spires, nature's geometry on display. "This is one of my favorite spots in all of Canyonlands," Sarah said, her voice quiet, reverent. "It feels like a cathedral, doesn't it? These rock walls, the open space in the middle, the light coming in from above." Lyla understood exactly what she meant. The space had a sacred quality, not religious necessarily, but profound, the kind of landscape that invited contemplation, that made you aware of deep time, of forces much larger than human scale. They walked into the center of Chesler Park and sat on a rock, drinking water, eating trail mix, just being present. A raven flew overhead, its call echoing off the rock walls. The wind moved through the grass, making a soft rushing sound. Otherwise, silence, deep desert silence, the absence of human noise creating space for natural sounds. People have been coming here for thousands of years, Sarah said. Ancestral Puebloans, earlier groups before them. They left rock art, pottery shards, evidence of their presence. This landscape hasn't changed much since then. Same rocks, same light, same silence. After spending time in Chesler Park, they hiked back to the Jeep, the return journey offering different views. The light shifted enough that everything looked slightly new. Back at the trailhead, they drank more water and prepared for the next drive. Sarah navigated them along Big Spring Canyon Road, another rough backcountry route, this one following the edge of a deep canyon. The road was dramatic, sometimes running right along the rim, offering vertiginous views down into the canyon where cottonwoods grew along a seasonal creek, their leaves just beginning to show autumn gold. They parked at another trailhead and hiked to Devil's Kitchen, a formation where a section of rock had collapsed, creating a natural arch or window looking down into darkness. The hike was short but steep, descending into a slot canyon, the walls rising on both sides, narrowing until they could almost touch both sides. The Devil's Kitchen itself was dramatic, a hole in the rock floor where you could look down into a chamber below, natural light filtering in, creating an otherworldly effect. The formation showed the layering of rock, different strata visible on the walls, each layer representing a different era of deposition, millions of years of geological history compressed into a few dozen feet. This kind of feature is called a graben, Sarah explained. The rock fractured and a block dropped down, creating this void. Eventually it'll collapse completely, but for now we get to see this stage of the process. They climbed back out of the slot canyon, the return requiring some scrambling over rock, and made their way to the Jeep. The afternoon was progressing, and Sarah checked the time. Perfect. We'll head back now and stop at the sunset viewpoints. The light should be getting good just as we arrive. The drive back along Elephant Hill Road was easier in this direction, gravity helping rather than fighting them, and Sarah timed it perfectly. They stopped at Wooden Shoe Canyon Viewpoint, just as the light was beginning its golden hour transformation. The viewpoint looked across a vast canyon system, the rock formations creating a maze of spires and fins, canyons and plateaus, the scale difficult to comprehend. In the golden light, everything glowed, the red rocks becoming more intensely red, the white bands more brilliant, the shadows deepening, creating dramatic contrasts. Wooden Shoe is named for a rock formation that supposedly looks like a wooden shoe, Sarah said, pointing. You have to use your imagination a bit, but people say they can see it. Lyla looked where she indicated and could sort of see it. A rock formation with a curved shape that, with generous interpretation, resembled a clog. But honestly, the specific formation mattered less than the overall vista. The incredible landscape spread before them, the golden light making everything radiant. They stood at the viewpoint for a long time, watching the light change, the colors shifting as the sun lowered. Other visitors arrived, a couple in another Jeep, a solo hiker, everyone maintaining a respectful quiet, the landscape commanding reverence. As the sun approached the horizon, Sarah drove them to Pothole Point for the final sunset viewing. They arrived just as the light was at its peak, that moment when everything seems to glow from within, when colors reach maximum saturation, when the world feels touched by magic. From Pothole Point, the view encompassed the full sweep of the Needles district, the spires and fins catching the golden light, the distant La Salle Mountains visible to the northeast, their peaks still holding snow, and everywhere, the red rock landscape, endless variations on the theme of erosion and geology. The sun touched the horizon, and the colors intensified, deep oranges and reds, the rocks seeming to be lit from within, glowing. The shadows lengthened, creating depth and texture, every crack and crevice visible, the landscape three-dimensional and alive. Sarah stood beside Lyla, both of them silent, watching. No words seemed adequate or necessary. The desert at sunset spoke for itself, needed no interpretation or explanation. The sun slipped below the horizon, and the colors began to fade, softening to pastels, the intensity giving way to gentleness. The sky remained light, that extended twilight when the sun is gone but its light remains, filtering through the atmosphere, creating a glow that seems sourceless. "This never gets old," Sarah said finally. "I've seen hundreds of sunsets out here, and everyone is different. Everyone is perfect." They stood until the light was almost gone, until the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Then they walked back to the Jeep, headlights now necessary for the drive out. The drive back to the visitor center was quiet, both of them tired in the best way, muscles used and satisfied, minds full of images and sensations. The headlights carved a tunnel through the darkness, occasionally catching a jackrabbit or the reflection of eyes, a fox or coyote watching from the scrub. At the visitor center parking lot, Sarah pulled up next to Lila's rental car. "What did you think? Worth the drive?" "Absolutely," Lyla said. "Thank you for sharing this place, for timing everything perfectly, for knowing where to go." "My pleasure. The Needles District doesn't get as much attention as some other parks, but that's part of what makes it special. Fewer people, more solitude, more of that sense of discovery. I'm glad you got to experience it." They said goodbye, and Lyla transferred her gear to her car. Before driving away, she stood for a moment, looking up at the stars now fully visible, the Milky Way a bright band across the sky, the darkness complete and beautiful, the desert night offering its own gifts. She drove slowly back toward the highway, careful on the dark roads, thinking about the day. The adventure of the rough roads and the scrambling hikes, yes, but also the calm of Chesler Park, the silence among the needles, the profound beauty of the landscape, the way the golden light had transformed everything. Canyonlands was aptly named, a land of canyons, layer upon layer of them, carved by water over millions of years. The Colorado River and its tributaries creating this maze of rock in space, exposing geological history, revealing the processes that shaped the earth. But more than just canyons, it was a land of spires and fins, of arches and alcoves, of slick rock and sand, of subtle colors and dramatic forms, of silence and vast spaces, of light that changed everything, revealing new details with each hour's passing. The Needles District in particular felt remote and wild, less developed than other parts of the park, requiring more effort to experience but rewarding that effort with solitude and beauty, with the sense of being in wilderness, of seeing landscape relatively untouched by human presence. She reached the highway and turned toward her accommodation, a small inn in a nearby town. The drive was long, but she didn't mind. The day replaying in her mind. The morning hike at Pothole Point, the rough drive to Elephant Hill, the cathedral-like space of Chesler Park, the descent to Devil's Kitchen, and finally, the perfect golden light at sunset, the landscape glowing, offering its best face. September in the desert was ideal, she reflected, the heat manageable, the light beautiful, the risk of afternoon thunderstorms past, the visitors fewer than summer, the cottonwoods beginning to turn gold, the temperatures allowing comfortable hiking, the night cool enough to sleep well, all of it combining to create perfect conditions. At her inn, she carried her pack inside, dusty and tired and completely satisfied. She showered off the trail dust, the water running brown at first, desert sand and red rock particles washing away. Then she sat on the small balcony outside her room, wrapped in a blanket against the cool evening, looking at the stars. The adventure and the calm had balanced perfectly, she thought. The excitement of the rough roads and challenging terrain, the physical effort of hiking, but also the contemplative peace of sitting in Chesler Park, of watching sunset, of being present in a landscape that operated on geological time, that made human concerns feel small in the best way, perspective-giving rather than intimidating. The needles stood out there in the darkness, silent and enduring, the same spires that had been there for millions of years, that would be there for millions more, shaped by wind and water and time, patient and beautiful, offering themselves to anyone willing to make the journey, to walk among them, to sit quietly and look and appreciate the gift of wilderness, of landscape untamed and extraordinary, of earth revealing its ancient processes and inviting contemplation of deep time and natural beauty.